Think of those disciples gathered together in that room, scared out of their minds. They know that the women say that they have seen Jesus, or that they have heard that Jesus lives. What are they to make of these strange tales? That must be even more confusing than witnessing the crucifixion, which must have been quite devastating. What are they to make of what is going on? How do they connect all of the dots? How do they figure this out? And then suddenly Jesus is there, and Jesus breathes on them. In the past year, most of us have learned the power of breath and what the breath can carry. And here we have a really different vision of breath. Jesus breathes on the disciples. And in this way, they know that Christ lives. He's living, he's breathing. He's not just some otherworldly ghost. I also think about those disciples and the fact that they had not just lost a friend to death. At some point, most of us will know what that feels like, to have lost a friend to death. But they had lost a whole movement to which they had dedicated their lives. They had left their family. They had left their friends. They had devoted themselves to this vision that Jesus offered them when Jesus said, "Come and see." And now, Jesus is dead. Many of us may not have ever devoted our whole lives, or 2 years of our lives, or any part of our lives to that kind of cause, to some cause that woke us up and beckoned us and said, there's a different life, and you can be part of building it. Come and be part of building it. Imagine these disciples who had spent years following Jesus, listening to this vision of a different kind of community, devoting themselves to building this different kind of community, and now it seemed gone in ruins. The leader crucified. What a gruesome death. And you can imagine that the disciples who were leaders in this Jesus movement must have been terrified that they would be next. And you can imagine that Thomas, upon hearing the disciples, his fellow disciples, tell him that they had seen Jesus back from the dead, Thomas must have wondered if they had finally and completely gone round the bend, if their grief had made them insane, cracked mentally. It's no wonder that Thomas doubted, that Thomas said, yeah, I'll believe you when you show me the nail marks, when I can put my hands in the wounds of Jesus. Because of course Thomas didn't think that that would ever happen. Thomas didn't think that Jesus had risen from the dead. Most of us have experience with death. And it's not hard to put ourselves in the place of Thomas. It's not hard to understand why Thomas doubted. Imagine you had seen Jesus on the cross, suffering terribly, tortured, laid in a tomb. There was no doubt, there could be no doubt that Jesus was dead. These were the Romans, after all. They did not play. They did not mess around. Jesus was crucified, and all these deaths were verified before they were taken off of the cross. The bodies were dead. Jesus was dead. And then as now, dead people did not come back to life. So you can imagine how Thomas would have reacted, how Thomas did react when the disciples said, "We have seen Jesus." You can imagine what he must have been thinking. Christian tradition tells us that Jesus was on earth after rising from the dead for 40 days before ascending. And in those 40 days, we see him behave in ways that show that he is a physical body. In this gospel, he breathes on the disciples. Thomas touches his still fresh wounds, puts his hands in Jesus' side. Later, we'll see Jesus cook. We'll see Jesus eat. We'll see Jesus walk. And yet, the Jesus that is here is not the same Jesus as before. This Jesus appears and disappears and can go through walls. He is physical. He is corporeal. He is in a body. He is incarnate. But he is also changed, transformed. Christ invites us to be changed and transformed too. And how many of us are similar? How many of us doubt this good message? How many of us truly believe that death does not have the final answer? Sure, maybe we believe it in terms of everybody's going to heaven kind of thing. But how many of us truly believe that life itself can be transformed? It's not just about waiting till heaven. How many of us believe that what we've got here, our human lives, our human communities, can they be resurrected? Can they be transformed? Or are we willing to say, you know what, death has had the final answer here? Are we resurrection people? Are we committed to resurrection? Do we believe the good news? The inbreaking kingdom of God? Do we believe God when God says life does not have to be this way? Life can be transformed. In this time after Easter, it is worth coming back to Pastor's Easter message. In Pastor's Easter sermon, he asked, what in us needs to die? What in our lives needs new life? Where are we needing resurrection? And how can we commit to resurrection? What do we need to die to? What needs to die in us? Where do we need new life? How can we commit to that new life? How can we be born again? Like the butterfly that is born again by consuming the remains of the old life, of the caterpillar life, even while retaining some memories of the caterpillar life. Like the resurrection fern that can lose 93% of its life-giving water, but still remain waiting, ready for the next rainy season, ready for the life-giving water.